Okay, I'm with Scott Richardson, and he's got one heck of a great story to tell me, and he's agreed to tell it to all of us. And so with that, Scott, take it away.
All right, Terry, I guess the most important news here is that we're willing to share the location of this treasure to an appropriate person. I'm going to let them actually contact you, Terry, and I'll let you do a little vetting or something, but if they pass your test, then pass them on to me, and we're willing to the right person to reveal the location of this treasure, and you'll see why in just a second. We're looking for someone else to joint venture with us. So there's a few, all of the treasure hunters and everyone, they all have these incredible stories, and I'll tell you, this is from our family, and it starts with my great-grandfather in Mexico. He and my grandfather were actually living in Mexico. They were Caucasians, but they had a ranch there, and it was outside in Chihuahua. And what happened was there was an old Indian guy that they treated very well. And then he was dying. And he said to my great-grandfather and my grandfather, he said, you know, you've been so good to me. I'm going to show you a silver streak that is almost pure silver. And my grandfather and great-grandfather were skeptical, but they said, sure, why not? And so he took him and showed him a small patch of silver vein, and my grandfather said, it gleams silver, and so he goes, hey, I'll just dig out a piece and we'll take it and get it assayed. So he did, and he came back, and it was like 60% silver. It was like incredible, you know? And so my grandfather said, I'm going to go back and get the rest of it. And when he went back, it was all scooped out. And it turned out that this Indian son heard that his father had revealed the location of this, and he was jealous and upset, and he scooped out the rest of the silver. And so my grandfather said, well, who cares about a little thing? I care if there's like a big vein running up the rest of the mountain. So he brought back a mining engineer, and he said, look, if there was a 60% ore streak right here, what's the chance it runs all the way up the mountain? And the mining engineer said, see those fault lines? Almost for sure it runs up the rest of this mountain. And my grandfather said, thank you very much, get lost. And so about that time, the Mexican Revolution broke out, and my grandfather and my great-grandfather had to leave Mexico. And they came up to the United States, and it was it was a situation where, you know, they lived on a ranch in Arizona that I've seen it. There's no water there. I can't even imagine you trying to make a living there. And they tried to, you know, make some kind of living, but they never really were successful. And so my grandfather said, you know, this is after World War II, we need to go back there, find that silver streak, and get rich and live happily ever after. However, when they went back there, they found out this is in the Sierra Madres mountains, and I've been there myself and looked for it, and the canyons are so huge. I mean, if you look off in the distance, to me they look bigger than the Grand Canyon. They're gigantic. And what happens is that every 40 years there's a massive flood that goes down this canyon and rearranges the whole landscape. And that's what had happened in between. And so my grandfather, and I've been there with him, he said we could be like standing on it right now and not realize it. So we had some fun trips down there to look for it, but finally my cousin who went with us on the trip, he calls me up recently and he goes, Scott, I've found it. I said, you what? He said, I found it. I said, you been to Mexico lately? He goes, no. I said, how did you find it? And he said, Google Earth, Google Maps. And I said, are you serious? And he goes, yeah. He says, remember what we're looking for? And he described the whole thing, the rocky ledge, everything we were looking at. He says, I found it. And I didn't believe him. I said, really? And he goes, look at it with me. And so I dialed it up, and I mean, my cousin used to be in aerial photography, but nowadays you don't even need to do that most of the time. And we followed the absolutely, and bingo, X marks the spot. Willing to share it with you, and here's why. That area now happens to be controlled by drug smugglers. And so you got to be willing to, shall we say, be adventurous. Probably wouldn't hurt to speak Spanish. And if you are the right person, we're willing to share that location with you, and we'll joint venture with you on the profits. If you want to know more details, again, contact me through Terry, and I'll share with you if you're the right person, and we come to an agreement. We'll give you all the details. I even have some resources in Mexico I can hook you up with, and enough said. So if that's something that you'd like to at least check out, it's available. Our family's decided we're not doing this one alone, and there's the story.
And Scott, man, that's a great story, and thank you for sharing that.
You're
That's a wrap.